Well, I think it's really exciting that UMS is bringing in young Jean Lee, because we're not in like a major metropolitan area where there's a lot of contemporary new theater happening. And she's definitely one of the more exciting and prolific voices that's making avant-garde theater today. She's a woman, she's a person of color, and she's working within an experimental but accessible domain. And there's nudity, so it's January, and I feel like that's going to heat things up a little bit. I'm excited about that.
Yes. It's so incredible to see that a play or a performance is naked women on stage grappling with deep ideas. That a play called Straight White Men, written in the traditional way of a well-made Aristotelian play, is actually really slowly cutting away at what that means and asking deeply contemporary questions of straight white male identity.
I mean, definitely should see both, because it does speak to one of her gifts, which is her range.
Completely.
And if you see one and you think that's who she is, the other one just seems very, very different.
You haven't seen Straight White Men, right?
I've seen so many straight white men.
You've seen any other? But I think
it's all I see is straight white men.
Again, in the way, destroy the audience. Like the title alone in 2014 or whenever that you're going to call a show Straight White Men, especially from her coming out of her oeuvre, is that's provocative, right? Just right there to call it that. It's already doing so much work, because it's on some hand, it's how dare she? We don't need any more straight women, but it's okay, she's definitely going to be playing with that.
Calling something Straight White Men after a whole engagement around identity politics, I mean, makes us aware in a way that sometimes falls out of the conversation that heterosexuality, whiteness, maleness, those are all performances too. They're all identities, and they're not just the culture. It's so rare for women to be allowed to be provocateurs, to really throw people into this level of discomfort and uncertainty. There's a long tradition of men in culture, white men in culture, being provocative, and if they're in fact not really provocative but just offensive, that's always you can always hide behind that role. But with women, it's rare.
There's the sense of I can't remove the idea of young Jean Lee's emotional connection herself to the project. That's something that's always in my head when I leave the work.
Well, what is that? Can you say more about that?
And maybe it starts because I've literally been on Facebook. I read her emotional connection to it from the couple years, potentially even before, and sort of sometimes even in a discomforting way of she's in there almost in my brain wanting to trigger something in me in a way I don't feel in many plays, and even plays that are made from a writer-director where you inherently have a more hand of the maker in them. That's something I have when I leave those shows. What is a straight white man supposed to do with himself? Which is basically a question of the play. And then what is everyone around us, everyone that's not a straight white man, also supposed to do with straight white men? Those are huge questions, and I think it's not like she's even intending to answer that, but those are underneath that, I think, in that play. But what does that mean in this contemporary moment to be a straight white man? And I think she's pulling back to consider that in this antithetically subversive way by putting them in the most natural environment of a well-made play about straight white men. So I think it's becomes a bit of a theatrical laboratory for considering.
I'm thinking entitled feminist, you're thinking about, or she's wanting you to think about, when we talk about the performance of gender, we're talking about a kind of choreography of moving through and how your gender presentation informs the way you occupy space and how you do different daily tasks, banal tasks, or maybe not banal tasks,
Right.
or a range of tasks. How do you use your body? And so if it's a performance, then there's a kind of choreography
Right.
for it. And by having different bodies on stage who have like a different relationship to, biology and different relationships to how they see their gender, she's really thinking about it as a performance. It's not an idea.
Right.
It's not some theory that somebody dreamt up. It's a reality. To say gender is a performance is a statement of fact.
Right.
You're really made aware of that, and in a different way, using a different form. She's
Right.
also thinking about these identities that we just thought of, like white people don't have race,
Right.
Men don't have gender,
Right.
and now we know that that's not true.
Right.
And so I think she's asking us to think and to feel about that, and to not come to a conclusion.
Oh, definitely.
So
yeah.
it's not coming to a conclusion. That's different than like writing a
Yeah.
scholarly paper where you have to have some conclusion, and even if it's an open-ended
Right.
one, there's you got to wind it down.
Yeah, and I think the word you just used, feel, to think and to feel, I think that ties into that thing I was trying to explain with the weird young Jean's emotional questions that I somehow can feel present in me afterwards. I think getting to feel this thing unfold in front of you is a huge part of it. These aren't as clear as the topics are from the titles to what is you see. It's not to stir up didactic answers. It is to stay with these questions and feel how confusing and amazing and scary it is to be next to these questions in a way that, frankly, only live performance can really make happen to elicit a certain feeling. Yeah.